Hello, so today's video is all about the Canon 16-35mm f4 image stabilized lens. Now this was made specifically for full frame digital SLRs, but you can easily use it on a crop frame sensor as well, and I'm sure many people will be, but you can also use it on the R range of cameras with the correct adapter. So it kind of makes it pretty adaptable really. Now I've been using this lens for 5 years. And to begin with, I'll just show you a few of the pictures that I've taken with it so you can get an idea of the kind of work that I've been producing with it and that it's capable of. And then I'll come back to talk about my experience of owning it and using it and talk about some of the good things and some of the bad things. So here we go. That was an eclectic set of pictures, everything from travel to landscapes to interiors to portraits. I wanted to show you the kind of range of work that I rely upon this lens for, and I really like this thing, by the way. I rely on it every day and I've shot hundreds of photography assignments with it, and I don't talk about it very often or even think about it very much because it just keeps nailing the pictures down, it just keeps doing the job. And that's really vitally important for me in my life as a professional photographer. Now, the 16-35mm lens range, I use it all the time and I've had multiple versions of them over the years. I've probably been using them for about 15 years and I've owned several, and I've also broken several. I think because it's a lens that gets used so often, for some reason it gets more than its fair share of abuse, and I've broken a few over the years. So going back 5 years, I had a 16-35 2.8 and I broke it. I ordered a new one, which was the 16-35 2.8 Mark II or something like that, but there was a supply problem and I couldn't get hold of one. So there was a waiting list. So I needed a stopgap because once you're used to working with a wide angle focal length, you really rely on it every day and you can't be without it. Certainly I can't. And so I bought the 16-35 f4 thinking it would be a bit inferior to that because it's cheaper and it's not got that 2.8 aperture, and I thought that as soon as this one arrived I would start using that and probably just use this as a backup lens. Now that hasn't been the case at all. Even though I've got both, I still end up using this one probably 95% of the time. And the main reason for that, I think, is because there's nothing wrong with either lens. The main reason, I think, is that it just balances and fits into the hand so well. And I think that that's something that is not often talked about with lenses and camera equipment, of just how does it make you feel and how does it fit into your hand, how do you feel when you're using it over a long period of time. And that's quite important if you're shooting sort of multiple days, all day long, working with a camera and a lens. How does it sort of feel? And it just balances well, and I think because it hasn't got the 2.8, the extra glass in the end for the extra stop of light that the 2.8 version has, it's a slightly smaller element, I think it just kind of counterbalances better. Okay, so optically, no problem. Actually, neither of these lenses have a problem optically, but the f4 version, I've not had a problem with it optically. It's sharp across the apertures, wide open to close down from the edge to the center across the zoom range, so no problem at all, nor with distortion or any of those other things. Now, I'm not really a technical kind of lens guy. I just kind of either like a lens or I don't like it, or I have a problem with it because it's not sharp, and I've not had any of those issues with this at all. Slight negative, I suppose, is that it's f4, right? So if you really want that 2.8 aperture, then you've got to go elsewhere to one of these. And there are certain circumstances that I would still choose the 2.8 lens to shoot with if I'm shooting in really low light and I need a fast shutter speed to freeze action, for example. That would be a case in point of when this lens would probably get use over this one. But that's probably once a year or something like that. Although when you need that 2.8 aperture, you really need that 2.8 aperture, simple as that. It's probably why I've hung on to it, to be perfectly honest. Having said that, this thing has image stabilization, and I didn't think image stabilization on a wide angle lens would be important. I thought it was probably mainly for telephoto lenses, which, it's very cool for long lenses, but it also has become something that I've learned to rely on a lot with this lens. And in an ideal situation, rather than rely on image stabilization, you probably rely on a tripod for some types of photography, but we don't live in an ideal world, and I find myself relying on the image stabilization a lot, and it enables me to take pictures that would be not possible without it. Now, build quality. This thing is a tank. It's as simple as that. I've put this through the ringer. I've done things to this lens that should never have been done to camera lenses, and it just has been amazing. After hundreds of assignments and being misused, it just works perfectly. The zoom ring is still super smooth, the focus ring is still super smooth, weather sealing is intact, and it has been thrown around and abused, and no problem at all. In Central Africa on a shoot a few years ago, I was lying on my back underneath a borehole trying to capture the water coming out of this tap, and I'll put a clip in if I can find it. And somehow, you know, I was trying to get the water kind of coming near the lens, but actually it ended up going in the lens, and the camera got soaked and the lens got soaked, and I thought I'd killed the lens completely. But I just wiped it off with my t-shirt, no problem at all, not a moment of drama from it before or, you know, ever since. Now, this thing has a 77mm filter ring, which is quite useful. This thing's bigger, but the 77mm is the same as most of my other lenses that I happen to have, and that's cool because it means that I only have to carry kind of one polarizer, for example. There is no zoom creep at all, which is great because I hate zoom creep. And so I was using this on an R5 recently with the adapter, and it's absolutely perfect with that camera, with those cameras too. It obviously throws the lens out about 1 centimetre or 2 with the adapter, but that's no problem. And the focus is fast and accurate on both, on the 5D range and on the R5 or R6. So no problem there at all. And you know, for a crop sensor camera, it's probably not the best thing in the world. It'll work perfectly with a crop sensor camera, but it won't give you the same wide angle because of the crop sensor, so it'll be more like a 25 to 50 or something like that, which is okay, but you know, if you're looking for a wide angle for a crop sensor camera, there are other options out there. Now, in terms of value, you can pick these things up second hand for about 600 quid now, maybe a bit less for a battered one, maybe a bit more for a mint version, or I think they're about £1,000 new, and that's good value over some of the other really expensive wide angles that there are these days. And so it's a good value lens. So I'd have no problem at all recommending it. It's a vital piece of my photographic equipment. And I kind of wanted to make this video just to throw some respect at this lens, because I've made all kinds of other videos about all kinds of other equipment, and yet this thing has been nailing it down for me and kind of deserves the respect that it's due. So thank you very much for watching, and take care out there, and I'll see you soon.